Tom Cruise made a set of keys appear and disappear in the movie Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. So, I made these amazing key replicas to teach you exactly how to do that. So, let's get started. As you can see, I made these very beautiful looking replicas from cardboard. Actually, I think this looks more original than this one. I'm just kidding. So these replicas are not actually available in my region. So I made these replicas. And also there are a few reasons why I'm going to be using this one instead of any of these keys. Now the first reason is very simple. You need a big key. So the small key is not going to work. You need a key that's big. Now you might ask me, then you already had a big key. Why did you go out of your way and make those replicas and spend time in doing so, spend time and effort in doing so? And the reason is again simple. The replicas, I'm using it because these are very light. These are made of cardboard, so these are very light. And this is made of actual metal, and this is very heavy. And with a heavy object, it's difficult to do this trick. And I'll also explain to you the reason why in a few moments. So, first of all, the reason we are using a big key is because so that we can hide it properly behind our thumb. Yes, the trick works in this way. So this part is the head of the key and this is the end of the key, which is the actual key, the teeth of the key. So what happens here is, in order to vanish this key, you have to glue the key over here on your thumb, okay? And once you glue this key, what happens is you hold the key like this, and from the front it looks like that you're actually holding onto a key. But when you open your hand, this thumb actually goes outwards and the key falls behind your thumb. And if the key is big, it hides really easily because the head of the key, which is quite thick, hides behind the wider part of your hand. Now, the base of the thumb, from below the base of the thumb, it's wider. So, if the key is bigger, the head of the key actually falls right over here. But you cannot do this because you have to glue the key onto this point of your thumb. Now, if you glue this key, well, it would work, but you have to use adhesive that is very strong because this is metal and this is heavy. And in order to hold something that's very heavy, you have to use a very strong adhesive. And I don't think that is that very comfortable when you're doing this trick. The idea of the heavy key is just not going to work. The key needs to be big. So you might ask, then you can use the small key. It's light. I mean, yeah, it technically will work, but as I said, the big key, when you are using it, the head falls below the base of the thumb. So it falls and hides behind the wider part of our hand. Now, if we do the same with the small key, what happens is that some part of the teeth of the key or the end of the key goes over here, right? So we open our hand, what happens is the key is not entirely, the head of the key is not entirely below the base of the thumb. So it is still on this part, and this part, as you can see, is little narrow. So if the head of the key is wide from the front, since the key is actually being hidden behind your thumb, you can see that the key is visible from the sides, and this entire trick will become very much angle sensitive. And in order to avoid that, you're going to be using a big key. Now, if you're going to be using a big key, you're going to have to use something that's very light. Now, big keys are also not that light generally because they are made of metal, and metal is not light. So I created this cardboard key, which is also the replica of the actual key that has been used in the movie. And the fun part is, in a movie, when you're seeing that, you being the audience, you really don't know that what is the key really made of when it is being shown in the movie. I mean, they could use sound effects in order to make it look like that metal by using sound effects of metal, but the key could also be made of plastic, and if it's made of plastic, it's actually very light. So the thing is, you have to have light key, and the key has to be big so that the head of the key, which is this part, falls below the base of your thumb. Now if you see that if you glue the end of the key or near the teeth part over here of the thumb, and then you open your thumb, you can see that the key perfectly hides behind your thumb, and the head also lands perfectly below the base of the thumb, and the base of the thumb is very wide, and it is going to perfectly hide the key behind your thumb, giving the illusion that the key just vanished magically. And of course, it has been shown as a sleight of hand in that movie. It's not being shown as magic. You can perform this as magic if you want. It really doesn't matter, because anyways you're not going to be giving the key to the audience. You're going to make it appear, then you're going to make it disappear, like as if something, you brought something into existence and then you made it disappear again, so it never really exists. So here is how the handling is going to be. Now remember, you're going to be gluing this bottom part of the key over here onto your thumb. Okay, and you're going to do it with both of your hands. And also, this is also for a camera trick mostly, because I mean, in front of the audience, how can you glue these keys? I mean, you can do this, you can use magician's wax. If you're performing this in a magic trick, you can do that. You can use magician's wax to make the keys end stick to over here on your thumb. You can do that, but still this is actually really good if you do this in front of a camera and make videos. That will be really fun. Okay, and also you don't need to have to do this with both the hands. You can do it with just one hand. And here is how you're going to be operating this. So here is the handling of the trick. Now for this, as you can already imagine, as I've already mentioned in the tutorial, that the keys have already been hidden behind my thumb by sticking it to the top part behind my thumb. So the end of the keys are stuck over here. I use sellotape. You can use anything you want. You can use glue, you can use magician's wax. And that is also the reason why I said that whenever you're going to be using big keys, and if they're real, they're probably going to be made of metal and they're going to be heavy. And there are chances that it will fall from your fingertip. It won't get stuck to your fingertip. So you have to use strong adhesive, and which is also not good for your skin, and it's also uncomfortable. So, and still it will fall. That's the stupid part of using a very heavy key. And people generally don't do these tricks with keys. They do this with matchsticks. Now here is what you're going to do. Let me show you the handling. Okay, so the keys are stuck over here, and in order to bring the keys into vision, all I have to do is just bend my thumb like this and then cover the front part of the thumb. Now it looks like I'm holding the key, right? And make sure that your hand is at the chest level or above the chest level, because if it's not at the chest level, if it's below the chest level, if your hands are open, you can flash the keys from side of your hands. As you can see, it's going to be very much visible. But if your hands are above your chest level and your wrist is twisted upwards, it's pointing upwards, the fingers are pointing upwards, then the keys are going to hide very easily. And in order to bring it, all you have to do is just bend the thumbs and then cover it and then twist your wrist forward. Okay, so that is going to be the action, and it has to happen fast. All of these actions will have to happen fast. So it's not like that you're going to bend your wrist and do all of this at the same time. You're going to first grab the key over here and then twist your hand. But it should look like that all of these are happening at the same time, and that's how fast you have to do it. Practice this in front of a mirror several times. And as you can see, I am moving my hands over here. From this angle, the key is very much secured because it's not visible, right? So in order to bring it, all I have to do is just bend the thumb, cover it up with the other fingers, and push it forward. And this is what it looks like in real time. And you have to do it fast, otherwise people are going to see that the key is rising from behind the thumb if you don't do it fast. So practice this in front of a mirror as many number of times as you want. So in order to bring the key, all you have to do is just give fast movements and vanish it. And then in order to vanish it, you see my wrist is twisted forward. In order to vanish it, my wrist needs to go backward again, and then I'm going to open my hands, right? So something like that. Give a little bit of movement so that you can hide what is happening. Okay, so you bring it, you bring it just like that. And if your hand is in this position, nobody is going to know where the keys are. And that's a beautiful part of this entire trick. Make sure you keep the wrist movements proper. And if you're performing this live, trust me, you won't need keys, because nobody does this with keys. They do it with usually mastics. So if you're doing it with mastics, you're only going to need a magician's wax and nothing else, no glue or anything. And you can easily do this. Mastics are also very easy to hide. They're very thin. So when you want to do this with mastic, and do this with only just one hand. It really doesn't matter, because I'm just teaching you how it was done in the movie, and that's why I'm teaching you all this explanation and stuff. So that's how you're going to do this.